Hi students, thank you for joining us today. I'm Miss Charlene. I'll give a brief introduction of myself first before I begin with the science paper. So I'm part of the OVERMUGGED primary school team. You can call me Miss Charlene. I teach mid and upper primary math and science. I've been teaching since 2010, but officially joined MOE sometime in 2011. So I've been an MOE teacher for the last 12 years. Over these years, I've taught more than 1,000 students, and there'll be more to come when you join us over here at OVERMUGGED. Okay. One fun fact about me is that many people misspell or mispronounce my name. So I've had many people calling me Sherilyn and Cheryl. In general, if I know that you are communicating with me, I will actually respond to these wrong names as well. Okay. Now with that, I am going to begin with the going through of the paper. Now you can also scan this QR code later to access the EOY paper answer sheet as well as the video if you need to refer to this again. Okay. And hopefully by the time you are sitting down for this video, you would have already attempted the paper and marked through it so that you know where your mistakes are. Okay. I will begin with booklet A first. It would be good if you have done it as a timed practice to give yourself the full 1 hour 45 minutes to sit down and complete the paper. And also hopefully you have gone through the paper with highlighting and annotation, okay, as per what is expected of a science paper. All right, so let's begin with booklet A. Now, for science paper, both booklet A and booklet B, the questions are split into either life science or physical science. So we're going to timestamp this video into MCQ life science, physical science MCQ, and then after that for booklet B, the same thing, life science open-ended, physical science open-ended. So you can scroll through to the parts where you feel that you need more explanation on, and then just focus on those, okay? Now let's begin. So for our booklet A, first question, I will be doing quite a bit of highlighting and annotating. If you have not done it when you were doing this as a practice paper, it's good to add this on now as part of your revision, okay? So for question 1, which of the following is not correct for both fungi and non-flowering plants? It's always good to highlight out the keywords when you are doing a science paper because the questions can get very wordy at times, okay? Now we're going to go through the options. And if you can recall, in primary 3, you have learned about these groups of living things. So fungi would be examples like your mold, mushrooms. And for flowering plant, I think one very common example straight away that you can think of is your ferns, all right? So for these two groups of living things, they both reproduce by spores. Now keep in mind, we are looking for the statement that is not correct, okay? Both need water to survive, yes, because they are living things. So all living things need air, food, and water. In this case, plants themselves, they get food by making it on their own, all right? Now, both do not produce flowers. This is again true. Mushroom and mold fungi as a group do not produce any flowers. As for plants, under the non-flowering plant groups, they do not produce flowers, okay? And the last option would be both can make their own food. Now, this is not correct for both the group because the non-flowering plants can make their own food, but the fungi cannot, okay? So with that, you should have gotten 4 as your answer. Now I'll be referring to my hard copy here. So now and then I will hear some flipping the paper. All right. Now question 2, we are looking at the human digestive system. This is again a lower primary topic. One thing I would usually ask my students to do when you see diagrams like that with labeling is to give the exact organ or give the exact part to the diagram. Okay. So for example, A is mouth. B would be your large intestine. Feel free to write in short form because these are annotations for yourself. C is your gullet. You can also call it esophagus, but it's a little bit more difficult to spell. Okay. D is stomach. And E is your small intestine. So it helps you when you've already identified the parts to answer the questions more easily. So for organs that produce digestive juices, you have the mouth, which produces saliva, the stomach that produces our gastric juice, and the small intestine that produces the intestinal juice, okay? Which means we can essentially narrow down our answers to either option 3 or option 4, okay? For the organs that absorb digested food, you have the small intestine, which carries out 2 functions, okay? So I think you did recall that the small intestines carry out 2 functions. One is to produce digestive juice. One is where digestion is completed and the digested food is absorbed into the bloodstream. So this will then link it to our primary 5 topic on circulatory system. Okay, so with that, once you've identified the small intestine as the organ that absorbs digested food, you will get option 4 as your answer. Okay, let's move on to question 3. Now, which characteristics is or are common among insects and reptiles? So this brings us back to our primary 3 topic again. Insects would be animals like your ants, flies, butterflies, so on and so forth. Reptiles is the one that sometimes some of you get confused with amphibians. So some reptiles that are commonly appearing in your textbooks would be a tortoise, lizards. Okay. Now with that, let's look at the statements that we have. Okay, they have 3 pairs of legs. This is not true for reptiles. Okay, the group of animals that have 3 pairs of legs in your primary 3 syllabus would be the insects. All right, both of them reproduce by laying eggs. This is true. The group of living things that you learn in primary 3 that does not reproduce by laying eggs is the mammals. Okay, and we are talking about the most mammals. All right. So the last one, where they have a hard outer covering, this is true for insects because they have a hard exoskeleton, but not true for all reptiles. Okay, for example, a lizard doesn't have a hard outer covering, right? So with that, we realize that only statement B is correct. That means your answer should be option 1. Okay. Now let's move on to question 4, where there is a classification diagram. So we've got a life cycle of animal that's split into 3 stage, 4 stage. Under the 3 stage, you will have animals that have the young that doesn't resemble the adult, or the young that resembles the adult. Okay. For 4 stage life cycle, you have learned all of them will have young that doesn't resemble the adult. Okay. So if you recap on some of the life cycles that you have learned, okay, for 3 stage life cycle, where the young doesn't resemble the adult, you will have frogs, right? Because the young of a tadpole is a frog, and a frog, the tadpole looks nothing like the adult. Now, for 3 stage life cycle where the young resembles the adult, we have a bit more examples. For this, we have chicken, we have cockroach, we have grasshopper. Okay, so it's good to annotate these things down, and then it's clearer for you when you are looking at the classification table below. Okay, so the last one where you have a 4 stage life cycle, all these would be insects that you have learned. Example, butterfly, mosquito, and beetle. Okay, I'm sure most, if not all of you, have had the experience of bringing home mealworm beetles to keep and to observe the life cycles closely. All right. So these are the general life cycles that you have learned in primary 3 or 4. Now, what do L, M, and N represent? Let's go through the options. Okay. So if we have already narrowed down L as the frog, that will leave us with either option 1 or 2 as the answer. Now, in the column for M, for a 3 stage life cycle where the young resembles the adult, we'll have cockroach. Beetle has a 4 stage life cycle, so option 1 is already wrong. Okay, and that will leave us with option 2 as the answer. Okay, so for this question, it will be good to label down the different animals that fall into the various classification for you to refer more easily. All right. Now with that, let's go on to question 5. This is a P5 topic on plant cell. So the diagram below shows a plant cell. Like we've said earlier, it's always good to label parts that's in the diagram so it's clearer for you. So for A, this would be the chloroplast. And B, which is the inner layer, you should be able to identify that as the cell membrane. And then C, which is the outer layer, it's a cell wall, right? Now for D, which is the brain of the cell, use it in inverted comma, this would be the nucleus. Okay, so the question is looking for parts that are also found in animal cell. So some parts here are also found in animal cells, and this would be cell membrane. All animal cells has a layer of cell membrane, and most animal cells, one exception would be a red blood cell that doesn't have a nucleus, but if not, all other animal cells have a nucleus. Okay, so this would leave us with B and D as the answer. Okay. All right, let's move on. Question 6. Again, we have parts to label. And this shows a cross-section of a flower. This is again your primary 5 topic on reproduction in plants. Okay, so let's get started with the labeling. But before I begin, I would like to circle out this part of the flower so that you can separate the male from the female. Okay, so this middle part here are actually all the female parts of the flower, whereas there's 4 things at the side, okay, would be the male parts, right? So for A, I hope you were able to identify this as the stigma, the flower. B, if you can see, it's not the female part, it's one of those 4 things that are sticking out. This would be the anther. C would be your ovary. And D would be the whatever that's inside on the ovary, which is your ovule, okay? So which of the following correctly classifies the parts of the flower, right? Your female parts would be made up of the stigma, the ovary, and the ovule. Okay, one thing that's not labeled here that belongs to the female part is this long thing in the middle here, which we call the style. Okay, so with that, the female parts would be A, C, and D, which will leave us with option 3 as the answer. And just to confirm, B, which is the anther, forms the male part. Okay, again, the male part has another thing, another part to it that's not labeled here, which would be your filament. Okay, the filament holds up the anther. All right, so over here for question 6, your answer should be option 3. Right? Let's move on. Now, question 7, short and sweet question. Butterflies visit flowers. You learn about the process of pollination. Okay. Now, how do these 2 organisms benefit each other? There's a reason why butterflies visit flowers. There's something from the flowers they want. It is also advantageous for the flower to have the butterflies visit them. All right. So the benefit for the flower is to increase the chance of pollination. So if you think through the process of the butterfly flying into the flower, the furry legs would actually catch onto the pollen grains, okay? And when it flies out or flies to another flower, there's a chance that these pollen grains will be rubbed off on the stigma to help in the process of pollination, fertilization, so on and so forth, okay? So benefit for the flower is really to increase the chance of pollination. But for the butterfly, they have nectar as food, okay? So this is why it's a benefit for butterflies, okay? Which will actually give us option 1 as the answer, right? Now, I just want to take a look at the remaining options just to clarify any misconception. So germination is a process where seeds grow into seedlings, okay? For germination to happen, the seed has to have 3 conditions: water, oxygen, warmth, all right? As well as a place where it should have moist soil for germination to happen, okay? Increased production of pollen grains is not dependent on the butterfly. And an increased chance of seed dispersal. For this to happen, the fruit must have already been formed, okay? And at the stage of where the plant has the flowers, there's no fruits yet. So it doesn't help in the increase in chance of seed dispersal. On the other hand, okay, pollen grains are not food for the butterflies. Butterflies do not eat the flowers, and butterflies do not lay eggs on flowers. They actually lay eggs on the leaves. Okay, so let me just annotate here. They lay eggs on leaves and not flowers. Okay, so over here, our answer would be option 1. Okay. Now let me move on to question 8. The diagram below shows the life cycle of a plant. So this question is a combination, or part of it is related to what you've learned in primary 5, which is reproduction in plants. Okay. And which of the following correctly identifies process X and Y? So in reproduction in plants, you learn 4 big processes: pollination, fertilization, seed dispersal, and germination. You need to know what these processes are, okay? What's the definition of these processes, so you know exactly what's happening, okay? Now, for process X, it's in between the part where the plant has flowers to the part where plants have fruits, okay? So for fruits to have formed, the seeds are still inside the fruits. The seeds have not been dispersed or anything yet, okay? At this stage, from flowers to fruits, possible processes that has happened for this to be formed would be pollination and fertilization, okay? In fact, both these processes happen during this part here, all right? Now, germination and seed dispersal involves the seed itself, so it's not at process X yet, all right? Moving on, for the seed to have plants with leaves, all right? It's the the part where the seed has grown. So we are referring to the germination here, okay? Part Y, where the seed has already grown to have plants with leaves, this should refer to the process of germination. And therefore, your answer should be option 2. Okay. Question 9 is an experiment question. Okay. Why do I say, or how do I identify straight away that it's an experiment question? It's because of the word to find out. Okay. Most of the time, whenever you see the word to find out, if, to find out whether, to find out how, the statement that follows would be the aim of the experiment. Okay. In this case, is if the mass of the seed affects the time taken for the seed to reach the ground. Now, with every aim, there's always two things you should be able to identify. One is your change variable. One is your measured variable, which is the results you're measuring for the experiment. Okay. In this case, if you were to read the question, you should be able to identify if that the change variable is the mass of the seed and the measured variable is how long the seed will take to reach the ground. Okay. So you've got a seed here. The seed has a wing. All right. Other than the change variable, everything else should be kept constant for a fair test. So we are looking for what else to be kept constant. Now, if you have already identified the CV and the MV correctly, you should be able to tell that what we are keeping constant is the length of the wings of the seed and the height it was dropped. Okay, so B and D, that will give us option 4 as your answer. Okay, now question 10. Using the key, which of the following correctly shows the flow of substances in different organs? Our key here shows that the solid arrow would be representing oxygen and a dotted arrow would be digestive. Okay, so you need to think back and recall at which point how does oxygen enter our body and how does digestive food get transported around the body. So if we focus on oxygen first, it has to come from the lungs. It's because of the air we breathe in. The oxygen will pass through the lungs into the bloodstream and then be transported to the heart. Okay, so let's narrow down our option using that first. Now the lungs will carry the oxygen to the heart, which means that will leave me with either option 1 or option 4. Okay, because in option 2 and 3, the oxygen is going in the wrong direction, right? Now digested food comes from the small intestine. It's because digestion is completed, it will be absorbed into the bloodstream at the small intestine and then transported to the heart and then around the body. Okay, so for the dotted arrows, we are looking for small intestines, rather food going from the small intestine to the heart. Okay, now because we've already narrowed down our answer to option 1 or 4, you realize there's a missing arrow here for the small intestine to the heart, which means we only have one possible answer left, and that would be option 4. Okay. So for the topic on circulatory system, you need to eventually be able to draw the link to our digestive system. That's combining what you've learned in primary 3 and primary 5 together. Okay. Now, question 11. This is again about transport, but this is about transport of substances in the plant. Okay. So the diagram shows how water and food flows through different parts of the plant. Now you realize that the parts of the plant are not labeled. All right. But the key here shows that the solid arrow is for water and the dotted arrow is for food, right? So again, you need to recall, where does water or how does water enter the plant? It enters the plant when the roots absorb the water from the soil, okay? So over here, this shows the entry of water into the plant, okay? This should tell you that X is the roots, okay? And with that, we can narrow down our answer to option 1 and 2. Now for food, food is made by leaves in the plant. So if you look, where is the food being produced from and then sent off to different parts of the plant? It is actually over here. Now let me use another color to represent or circle out the arrow so it's clearer to you. All right. So the food is coming from Z. This tells you that Z is your leaves. Okay. And all this would be transported to other parts of the plants like your stem and your flowers or fruits if the fruits are already formed. All right. So with that, we can then identify our answer as 1. Okay. This will be related to your plant transport system, something you have learned in primary 5 again. Right. Now, moving on to question 12. City conducted an experiment using this setup. Let's study the diagram closely. You have a tube here with light passing through to it. There's water in it. There's hydrilla. Okay. Now you should be able to identify hydrilla as a water plant. The other two tubes here are placed in a black box. One of them have fish in it. One of them does not. Okay. So straight away, you should be able to identify that this topic or this question is testing you on the topic of photosynthesis. There is light. What can this plant do? This plant can photosynthesize. I'm going to use short form for the word photosynthesis. All right. On the other hand, over here in the black box, the plant here cannot photosynthesize. So I'm going to just write down no PS. Same thing for B, no PS. Okay. Now, on top of that, for tube B, other than the plants not photosynthesizing, this fish here is respiring. So when we respire, is our to put it plainly, it's our breathing process. We are taking in oxygen, we are giving out carbon dioxide. Okay. What is the question asking for? We are going to rank the amount of oxygen that's in the setup after a few hours, from the least to the most. Okay. So what happens is that in tube B, the plant is not going through photosynthesis, it's respiring. The fish is also respiring. So these two living things are actually taking in oxygen. Okay, when you have all these living things taking in oxygen versus tube C, where there's just the plants taking in oxygen, tube B will have more oxygen taken in. In other words, less oxygen left in the setup. Okay, so it's always good to rank by just writing a small number at the side here. Okay, followed by this, right? Now, let's recall a little bit about photosynthesis for tube A. In the process of photosynthesis, the plants will give out oxygen, right? So when it gives out oxygen, you're going to end up having more oxygen in this tank or in this tube at the end versus at the start, okay? So tube A would have the most amount of oxygen, right? So we are looking for the answer B, C, and A, and this will give us option 3 as the answer, okay? One thing to take note of is plants in light. The processes that are happening is not just photosynthesis. It's both photosynthesis and respiration. But the rate of photosynthesis is higher than the rate of respiration. That's why the amount of oxygen produced will be more than the amount of oxygen taken in. Okay, it doesn't mean that in light the plant stops respiring. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Question 13. Joel wanted to investigate conditions that affect germination of seeds. He prepared 4 different setups with the same type of seeds as shown. Now, when you have so many setups here, it's always good to spot the difference, okay? So something special about setup Y would be you have a gel that absorbs carbon dioxide. You have damp cotton wool that means it's slightly moist. You place it in a cupboard. Now, on the other hand, the next setup, you have gel that absorbs oxygen. You have damp cotton wool. This time is placed by the window, all right? And then in setup Y, you have a damp cotton wool. It's placed by the window. Setup C, you have dry cotton wool. It's placed by the window. So it's 4 different setups, right? What do we want? The question is asking for which of the following pairs of setups correctly match the aim that Joel is investigating. So you need to match the correct setups with the correct change variable to the aim. All right. Now, if you look at setup W and X here, these two on top, there are more than one change variable here. There's gel that absorbs different gases. They are placed in 2 different locations. So when you have more than one change variable, this cannot be a fair test, and this cannot match the aim of the experiment. Okay. For W and C, again, you have more than one change variable. There's a gel that absorbs carbon dioxide. There's no gel. There's damp cotton wool, there's dry cotton wool. They are placed in different locations. So you cannot use this to find out if water is needed. Okay. Now for the third option, X and Y, if you look at X and Y, the only change variable here is the presence of this gel that absorbs oxygen. Number of seeds is the same. The type of cotton wool is the same. And then where the setups are placed is the same. Now let's look at the aim then. To find out if oxygen is needed for germination of seeds. So in this setup X, when you absorb oxygen, there's no more oxygen left for the seed. In setup Y, there's no such gel. Oxygen is present for the seed, okay, to germinate if it's needed. So between these two setups, there's only one change variable, which would be the presence of oxygen. Okay. Now, let me just go through the last option to make sure that we have eliminated the options correctly. Now, for setup Y and Z, if you look carefully, there's also only one change variable, which is damp cotton wool and dry cotton wool. But the aim here is asking if carbon dioxide is needed. So the change variable here does not match what is written in the aim. Okay, so option 4 is wrong, right? So for question 13, your answer would be option 3. Okay. We are on to the last question for life science. Okay, this, if you can tell at one glance, is testing you on photosynthesis. Now, a plant is placed in a dark room for 2 days. On the 3rd day, the 2 leaves are covered with different materials of the same size, shape, and thickness to ensure it's a fair test. Okay, the plant was then watered and left in the garden for 2 days. So let's look at the leaves. Plants or leaf P was covered with black paper. Leaf Q is covered with clear plastic. Okay. If you think back about your photosynthesis, this part that's covered by black paper will not be receiving light. So this part that's covered by black paper will not be able to photosynthesize or make food. On the other hand, the part that's covered with clear plastic allows light to pass through. So yes, the leaf can photosynthesize. Okay. Now, let me go back to leaf P again. You will have 2 parts of the leaves here that is not covered and is fully exposed to the sunlight. These 2 parts of the plants have no problem photosynthesizing, okay, since light is available for them. Now, on the other hand, for the other leaf, same thing. The minute it's not covered, light can reach the leaf can photosynthesize. So for leaf P, it's a bit more special. The middle part here that's covered by the black paper cannot photosynthesize. The rest of the parts that are not covered can photosynthesize. Okay, now let's go to the question. We are looking for the leaves when they are tested for starch, the correct test results shown here. Okay, so you know that usually when we test for starch, we're using iodine. Iodine is brown. In the presence of starch, it will turn dark blue or blue-black. Okay, so for this leaf here that's covered with the black paper, it is only the middle part here that doesn't photosynthesize. So it's only the middle part here that food is absent. Okay, with that, we should be able to narrow down our answer to option 2. So food is produced at these 2 ends of the leaves, but not in the middle part here, right? Now, on the other hand, for leaf Q, because the whole leaf actually receives light, so the whole leaf can actually make food and turn blue-black in the presence of starch, okay? So with that, our answer is option 2. Okay, so this will end of the part on the life science for MCQ. We are going to move on to physical science for MCQ in a bit. Okay, so now we are going to continue with the physical science segment of the MCQ. All right. Question 15, 3 solids made of materials A, B, and C were placed in a tank of water. So you can see that some float, some sink. Okay, the observation is shown. Now, which statement can definitely be concluded from that observation? Now, the question didn't tell us what materials ABC is made of. All right. Just because 2 materials sink, does it mean they're definitely made of the same material? No, it's actually not possible to tell, okay? So if you think about it, I can put a ceramic spoon and I can put a metal spoon into a tank of water. Both of them will sink, even though they are different materials. But we also cannot confirm that they are made of different materials, okay? So B and C, if one is sinking and one is floating, can they be made of the same material? This is definitely not, okay? And because they are sink and float, they are definitely made of different materials, right? Okay, so with that, we're going to move on to the physical science segment of this MCQ, all right? In this question, we've got 3 solids, materials A, B, and C that were placed in the water. And we see the observation below, A and B sinks, but C floats, okay? We are looking for statements that can definitely be concluded from the observation. Now, we are not told what materials the A, B, and C are, all right? Now, just because both are sinking, does it mean they are made of the same material? it may not. Okay, so a scenario that I can give you as an example would be ceramic spoon and metal spoon. When you place both these materials in water, they're both likely to sink, but they are made of different materials. Okay, then again, because they didn't tell us more details, we cannot be sure that they are made of different materials as well. So what I would conclude from these two statements is that it's not possible to tell. Okay, I'm going to use short form here. MPTT means not possible to tell. Okay. Now, on the other hand, the minute you have one item sinking and the other one floating, they are definitely not made of the same material. Okay, so this is a definitely wrong option. So this will leave us with the last one that we can definitely conclude that B and C are made of different materials. Okay. Now, question 16, 4 materials are listed below. You've got steel, copper, ceramic, rubber. We are looking for a classification that is not correct. Now, classification means to be able to put them into different groups. Okay. When I have classification metals and non-metals, I can put steel and copper into one group, ceramic and rubber to another group. So I can use this to classify these 4 materials. All right. Now, how about magnetic and non-magnetic? Magnetic, okay? The only magnetic material here is steel. So I can classify steel into magnetic, copper, ceramic, rubber into non-magnetic. So again, I can use this option 2 to classify these materials into 2 groups, okay? Number 3, reflects and does not reflect light. Now, for anything that is visible to us, it is because light is reflected. So I can see a steel spoon, I can see a copper wire, I can see a ceramic mug, I can see a rubber ball. The reason I can see all these four things is because they all reflect light, okay? So from here, we can actually conclude that this is a wrong classification, all right? I will end up putting all these 4 into one group and nothing in the other group, all right? On the other hand, or rather, if you look at the 4th option, conductor and insulator of electricity, metals are conductor of electricity, so steel and copper will fall under one group, ceramic and rubber will fall into the other group. Okay, so the classification that is not correct would then give us option 3. Question 17, you have 3 bar magnets. They are shown attracting each other as in the diagram. So it's always good to label the poles of the magnets first. Okay, you can also start off with south pole if you want. You will still get the same answer. Let me just fill in all the north and south pole first. Okay. The reason why you fill in the poles is so that later on in the options, you can write in the poles respectively and see whether they are going to attract or repel. Okay. We are looking for arrangements of the magnet that is not possible. So they are placed wrongly. Okay. So let's see. The first one here, I've got Y and A. Y is south pole. And A is north pole. South pole. North pole. Okay, no problem. They are attracting as they should, which means that S is your north pole, B is your south pole. Okay, this is also good. Now between B and P, P is the north pole. So this arrangement is possible because all the unlike poles are facing each other. How about option 2? Now I've got B and P here. This is south pole. This is north pole. South pole for Q. North pole for X. Again, unlike poles facing each other, they are going to attract. Okay. What about Q, X, and B? So Q is south pole. X is north pole. B is south pole. So if on one end, they are all unlike poles they are attracting, the other end will be correct. Okay. Going on to the last one, Q is south pole. X is north pole. A is north pole. Okay. You see a problem here for X and A. This north pole and north pole should not be attracting each other. Okay. So this arrangement should not be possible. And therefore, our answer is option 4. Okay. Question 18. Question 18, we have got a flow chart. You can see straight away we are looking at the topic on matter. So the first question asks, is it matter? And we say no for X. X would be a non-matter, which means it has no mass and it doesn't take up space. Okay, so it's good to annotate this down. And then we go down the flow chart to question Y that says yes for nitrogen. Nitrogen is a gas. And then no for water and mud, okay, which are your liquid and solid. So let's look at X first. Now for X, we are looking for non-matter. Non-matter are things like your different forms of energy, okay, which means it's either heat or sound. Okay, common mistakes that students tend to make is that clouds are water vapor, but because we can see clouds, they are visible to us, this is actually water droplets. So water droplets are made of water, it is a matter, okay? Steam is something that's invisible to us. It is actually water in a state of water vapor. Now, it is again water, so this is actually a matter, okay? Then that leaves us with question Y. Are we looking for the question, does it have a definite volume? Or are we looking for a question, can it be compressed? Okay, so if the answer is yes for nitrogen, nitrogen is a gas. Gases do not have definite volume. Okay, so the only possible answer we can have here is option 4. All right, gases can be compressed, they have no definite volume. All right, let's move on to question 19. Okay, this is a common trick question that students tend to get confused, all right? You need to understand the concept of gases not having definite volume. So they can either be compressed or they can take up any space that's available to them, all right? We begin with a container that has 300 cm cube of water, 200 cm cube of air. Now what happens is that you remove 50 cm cube of water, okay? In other words, you're gonna have more space here in the end. All right, you pump in air, yes, you can pump in 100 cm cube of air, you can pump in less or more, okay? What's important here is the space left. Your key idea to the answer is the space left in the container. So when you remove 300 cm, or when you remove 50 cm cube of water, what happens is that there's going to end up being more space. Let me just draw a line here. Okay, and the amount of space available now would be 20 and 50, which is 20 cm cube of space. What's going to happen to the air is it's going to spread out. It's going to spread out, take up all the space, all right? So what's the final volume of air in the container? It's going to take up all the available space here, which would be option 3. Okay, so do not get tricked by this question where you look at the diagram, because the diagram only shows the start of the experiment. Okay, so what happens in the end, the amount of space that's available that matters. Okay, let's move on to question 20. This is a light question. So an experiment was carried out in a dark room. We've got these objects here, cardboard with a cutout, object K. When the light was switched on, a shadow was formed on the screen as shown. Okay, the important thing is when object K was moved closer to the screen. Okay, so you can do a quick experiment with yourself now. I'm sure you have light, you have a screen, which could be your table. When you move your hand closer to the table, what happens to the size of your shadow? Your size of the shadow actually becomes smaller. Okay, so you should annotate shadow smaller. All right. Now for the cardboard cutout, it's not moved. So the size of the shadow of the cardboard cutout shouldn't change. Okay, which means we can eliminate option 1 and 3. Oh, sorry, option 1 and 2 as the answer. Now, between option 3 and 4, if you have identified this correctly, you should see a smaller shadow for this gray triangle, okay, instead of option 4 where it becomes bigger. All right, so this would give us option 3 as the answer. Okay, let's move on to question 21. Still on light, the graph below shows the length of Farah's shadow changes, how the length of a shadow changes over a period of time. She's walking on a straight line where the street lamp is fixed at a position. Okay, so you can see the changes in the length of the shadow. It goes down and then it goes up. All right, you should be able to visualize what's happening when she reaches point the 4th second here. Okay, when does our shadow become the shortest? Is when we are directly under the light. Okay, so you can annotate for yourself here, directly under light, to give you a sensing of how far she is from the street lamp. Okay, this is for the 4th second. Now, based on the graph, we are looking for which statement is incorrect. The decrease of the graph here and the increase of the graph here is happening at different rate. Okay, you can see one is decreasing slowly, one is increasing quickly. Now, the first option here is she's walking faster at period Y than at period X. For you to walk faster, what happens is your length of the shadow will also change faster. So we do see a faster change here because the slope is, the graph is steeper. So this question is, or this statement is actually correct. Okay, keep in mind, we're looking for the incorrect statement. Now, next one. She was walking towards the street lamp at period X. When you are going to be directly under the light, your length of the shadow decreases. So yes, you're walking towards the street lamp at period X. Okay. Now, she was closer to the street lamp at this point than at this point. Can she be closer to the lamp when her shadow is this long? No, she can't. Okay, so this would be the incorrect option. All right. Next one. The last one, the length of her shadow was the shortest at the 4th second as she was nearest to the street lamp. As what we concluded earlier, because she's directly under the light. So yes, her shadow will be the shortest. All right. Therefore, the correct or the statement that's incorrect would be option 3. All right. Question 22. Substance H is a solid at 40 degrees Celsius and a gas at 200 degrees Celsius. Now, usually for such question, I like to draw a number line so that I can see exactly when the change in state happens. Okay. Now, let me just quickly draw a number line below. And I'm going to mark out the different temperature. So let's say this is 40. And this is 200. Okay. Anything beyond this point, at least what I can tell from the statement is that it's going to be a gas. Anything below this would be your solid. Okay, so now let's see the options that we have. If you are at 30 degrees or 50 degrees Celsius, 50 would be somewhere over here. Let me use a different color to represent this. 50 would be somewhere over here. Okay, so can this be a solid? When it's, is it possible that the freezing point is at 50? There is a possibility because I don't know what happens before this, okay? But if you say that the freezing point is 30, let's say 30 is over here. This is the point where it changes from liquid to solid. So if you tell me that the freezing point is 30, you're telling me that anywhere along here, it still has to be a liquid, and then it changes into a solid below 30 degrees Celsius. So what this tells me is that this freezing point at 30 degrees Celsius is not possible, which leaves us with either option 1 or 3. Okay. Moving on, the boiling point for it to be at 190 or 220. Now, if you again go back to the number line, 190 will be over here. And then 220 will be somewhere here. Okay. So again, because it's already a gas at 200 degrees Celsius, my boiling point cannot be at 220 because what happens in between this 20 degrees then, right? So this will give us the boiling point at 190 and therefore option 1 as your answer. Okay. Question 23. We've got a kettle containing boiling water that was placed on the table. White mist was observed. Now, please remember, the minute we see the white mist, it is not in gaseous state anymore. It is actually in your water droplets state or liquid state. So they are water droplets. Okay, mist is water droplets, right? So for us to be able to see that, state of mist is liquid state, which is either option 1 or 2. Now, the process where water droplets are formed, if you recall your processes, water droplets are formed from water vapor. So water vapor to water droplets, it is actually the process of condensation, okay? And condensation is a heat loss process, right? So therefore, answer would be option 1, okay? Number 24. The diagram below shows the states, changes in state of water. Take note, this is water, and also take note, steam. Now, steam can only be formed when boiling has happened. So steam is at 100 degrees Celsius. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this is because we need to identify the different processes here in A, B, C, and D. Okay, so let's start off with the easy ones first. A, from ice to water, this will be melting. For water to ice, it will be freezing. C, because it's stated as steam here, this would actually be boiling and not evaporation. Okay, whereas for D, from steam to water, that would be condensation. Right? So once you've identified all these processes, now water or every substance has a fixed freezing, melting, and a boiling point. Okay, the two processes that doesn't happen at a fixed temperature would be your condensation and evaporation. So to answer this question, which processes happen at fixed temperature? We would have our melting, freezing, and boiling. Okay, the only one that doesn't happen at a fixed temperature would be condensation, right? So our answer would be A, B, and C, which is option 1. All right. Okay, let's move on to question 25. This is an electricity question. So two electrical circuits were set up using similar electrical components as shown. We've got all this ABCD here put in different position for circuit Q and circuit R. The table below shows which bulbs lighted up in the circuit, okay? So you realize that in circuit Q, no bulbs have lighted up. Why? It must be because this D is an insulator. So it's always good to label what you already know in the diagram so you can eliminate and the other options, all right? Now, at this point in circuit Q, we actually don't know whether C, B, and A are insulator or conductor until we continue with more tests, okay? So now if we look at circuit R, B2 and B3 lights up. Let me just highlight this so I'm very clear how the electricity is flowing, okay? This tells me that electricity can flow through this part. And therefore, the bulbs are lighting up, which then also allows me to conclude that B and A are conductors. Okay? Now, D is was an insulator. It will still be an insulator here. So what happens to C then? C is one of the materials that I can't tell yet until I conduct a third circuit, okay? So if we go down to the table below, which of the following is correct? I'm very sure that A and B are conductors. So that will leave us with option 3 or 4. I'm very sure that D is an insulator, okay, based on my circuit Q. And then for C, I can't tell yet, okay? Therefore, your answer is option 4. All right. Question 26, again on electricity. Now, the circuit is not drawn in your usual parallel circuit, but you should be able to see that there are 2 circuits here. Let me just adjust so that you can hear. So first circuit that's running through is D. Okay, and then the other circuit is this way. It's going to go around the 3 bulbs, E, F, and G. Okay, we are looking for which bulb would be the brightest. In the green circuit, this one battery is feeding 1 bulb. In the red circuit, this battery energy is split among 3 bulbs. So E, F, and G cannot be brighter than D. Okay, so therefore your answer is option 1. All right. Question 27, a ceramic mug containing hot coffee was left on the table. Which of the following action or actions will cool the coffee in the shortest time? How would it help to decrease the temperature the fastest? All right. So when you put a metal spoon into the coffee, metal spoons are a good conductor of heat. Okay. What it will do is to help heat loss. Increase heat loss from coffee to surroundings. Okay. This coffee would not only lose heat to the surroundings via the mug, but also through the metal spoon. So there's extra surface area for heat loss, okay? But when you cover the mug, it actually would slow down heat loss because the loss to the surrounding would be less, okay, or slowed down. So for the metal spoon, it actually helps. This does not. When you wrap a cloth around the mouth, it's like putting a blanket around it. It actually helps to, again, trap the heat, slow down the heat loss. So this actually does not help to cool the coffee in the shortest time, okay? And therefore, your answer would be A, which is option 1. All right? Okay, and here we are at the last MCQ. Now, Jerry has 3 similar containers filled with different amount of boiling water. Okay. We can see 120 ml for A, 30 ml for B, and then 200 ml for C. Okay. So she recorded the change in temperature over 30 minutes. Now, all these are going to lose heat. Water loses heat to surroundings. Temp decreases. Okay, temperature will decrease when it's losing heat, right? So which of the graph correctly shows the results of the experiment? Straight away, if you look at the graph, we can eliminate option 3 and 4 because this shows increase in temperature, which is not possible. When we narrow it down to option 1 and 2, let's take a look, okay? Think about it. When you have a small bowl of hot soup versus a large bowl of hot soup, which one will cool down faster, right? It will obviously be the smaller bowl, all right? Because there's less amount of heat to be lost, all right? So with that, we can actually identify our answer as option 2, okay? And we've come to the end for the MCQ section. I'm going to move on to booklet B now. Okay, so moving on, we are going to be covering booklet B. Now for booklet B, again, the questions are split into life science and physical science. So you can fast forward to the questions that you feel that you need more explanation on, okay? I've also already put in my answers here in the blanks to help speed up in my explanation, okay? So for our first booklet B question, it is on cells. You will see that this organism here that is found in the pond has several parts: cell membrane, cytoplasm, chloroplast, and nucleus, okay? The first question is asking for you to recall the function of the nucleus. Now, the nucleus is the brain of the cell, like what I said previously, okay? So it controls all the activities that's happening within the cell. It allows the cell to multiply, okay? This nucleus here also contains genetic information that's passed on from parents to young, all right? So you can either give one of these as the function of the nucleus, okay? Now in part B, they're asking if does the organism need to depend on other organisms for food? Now, straight away, you should be narrowing down to the part of the plant, chloroplast, right? Because we've seen chloroplast in plants before. This is why plants can make food, okay? So will this organism depend on other organisms? No. The organism itself actually has chloroplast and which contains chlorophyll to trap light and make its own food. Now, one thing about explain question, it's always good to identify 2 things. Number 1 is your evidence. Number 2 is your concept, okay? So for all the explain questions here, I will actually put down a side note to help you break down and hopefully help in your revision when you are looking through this paper again, chloroplast, okay? So what do I mean by evidence is what I can see in the graph, what I can see in the diagram. In this case, chloroplast is found in the diagram. Okay, now another concept is we should be able to identify what is the function of the chloroplast and therefore is able to make its own food. Okay, so our concept here, I should be recalling function of the chloroplast. Okay, this requires a bit of memorizing of the different parts of the cell, okay, to be able to handle well questions on cells. All right. So with that, I'm going to move on to question 30. Now, the diagram below shows two fruits, A and B. What's important about these two fruits is that they have something called hook-like structures. Straight away, when you see this phrase hook-like structure, you should be able to link it to seed dispersal. Now, different seed dispersals have different important characteristics of the fruits that we need to take note of. Now, and the types of seed dispersal that you have come across this year in primary 5 would be, we have water, wind, animal, and splitting. Okay, these are the 4 different types of seed dispersal, and therefore 4 different types of fruits with characteristics to help them to be dispersed in a particular manner. Okay, so we are supposed to describe how these seeds of the fruits are dispersed. You need to go back to the special characteristics here, which is your hook-like structures. So this hook-like structures, what happens is that they can catch on to sorts of humans or feathers or fur of animals. And when the animals run to another place, what happens is that it will drop off. Okay. And when it drops off, there's a chance that the seeds can germinate there in a new environment. Okay. And this would be useful for the plant because we don't want the seeds to cluster around each other, resulting in overcrowding. Okay. Now in part B, it tells us that fruit A is lighter. It can be dispersed further. Again, we need to explain, okay, why this is an advantage. So I want to come back to our evidence and concept again. Okay. Now, what evidence do we have from this question is that when it's lighter, it can cling on longer to the animal fur. All right. It's easier to carry light things than heavy things, right? So the concept here that you need to link to is your overcrowding. When it can cling on longer, there's a higher chance for it to be carried further. When it's carried further, it will be dispersed at a wider area. So what happens is that there's less chance of overcrowding. Okay. Now, another thing I need you to take note for open-ended is using words like comparatives and superlatives. You have 2 fruits here. When you're comparing 2 things, you will use comparatives like more, larger, faster, longer, shorter. So you can see in the answer here, I have taken, made an effort to make sure that comparatives were used for longer time, dispersed further, less crowded, less competition, okay? Keep your comparatives consistent in the whole answer. Now, another thing to take note for this question is, when you talk of overcrowding, it can be from the perspective of the seed, it can be from the perspective of the seedlings. Seeds and seedlings require different conditions or slightly different conditions to grow. For seeds, we are looking for space, nutrients, and water. And then for seedlings, there's one extra thing that they need, which would be sunlight, okay? So you need to state the conditions correctly so that you don't give extra wrong information, all right? So these are just some things you need to take note of for the answering for this part B here, okay? Now with that, let's move on to question 31. Question 31, you have an experiment with a water plant set up in a dark room. Okay, you've got thermometer, you've got oil, water plant, so on and so forth. And then the glass tube bubble. Okay, so look at the diagram carefully. Now the experiment was conducted by changing variable A. We do not tell you what variable A is. You're supposed to conclude it yourself, okay? The measured variable here would be the number of bubbles. So let me just label it down. This is our MV. We are measuring how many bubbles are produced. All other variables were kept the same, okay? So one thing you need to understand from the graph here is that over time, or as the experiment is conducted, there are less bubbles, okay? When there are less bubbles or more, based on the graph, there is more variable A, okay? What can cause less bubbles? So for this plant, when bubbles are produced, it's because photosynthesis is happening, okay? When you have less bubbles, that means less photosynthesis is happening. So what happens here is that it is likely that the torch is moved backwards, the plant receives less light, and then less photosynthesis occurs, okay? So state what is variable A. It is the distance between the torch and the water plant, okay? Now, next thing, based on the results, how does variable A affect the rate of photosynthesis? How does one variable affect the other variable? Now, the results from the experiment here actually shows the number of bubbles. It doesn't tell you straight away or directly the rate of photosynthesis. So this question requires you to draw an extra link, okay? You need to link the distance. I'm just going to put a note here. Distance in short form here, between the torch and the light. Link it to the amount of lights. Link it to the amount of bubbles formed. Number of bubbles. And then link it to the rate of photosynthesis. Again, I'm going to write in short form, okay, for photosynthesis. So your answer should cover these 4 things when you're telling the story in a stepwise manner, okay? First thing, the distance between the torch and the plants increases. So the amount of light received by the plant decreases, okay? Thus, the number of bubbles produced decreases as the rate of photosynthesis decreases, okay? So there are 4 things you need to put in your answer to make sure you give a complete story, okay? Now, last one here, why is this experiment conducted in a dark room, okay? This is a question asking, it's similar to asking, why do you need to keep certain conditions the same, all right? The answer is not just because I want to conduct a fair test, but the general idea is to ensure that the MV is only due to the CV. This is the general structure of the question, the answer we're looking for. Okay, so why is it conducted in the dark? In this case, it's to ensure our MV, which is the number of bubbles produced, or if you're a little going deeper in it, it's the rate of photosynthesis, is only affected by the amount of light from the torch, okay, and not light from the surroundings, all right? So we want to make sure that the results we're collecting is only because of one variable that we're changing and not other variables, okay? So to answer such question, the general format would be to ensure that the MV is only due to the CV. You need to identify the MV and the CV correctly to get your sentence correct, okay? Let's move on to question 32. 32 is your plant transport system, okay? Even without looking at the question yet, you can see, oh, part of the plant stem is chewed off, okay? And then you have cuts here and there on the plant, right? So Peter had a plant with fruits as shown. Part of the stem was chewed off at part H. By animals, the important thing here is causing the outer ring to be removed, okay? So just to recall a little bit, I always go through with my students Y4, water inside, food outside, okay? So Y4 is water inside, food outside. What this means is that your water carrying tubes are on the inside, food carrying tubes are on the outside, which means you need to evaluate and conclude that the outer ring, when it's removed, it is the food carrying tube that's removed. I'm going to write in short form again. FCT represents food carrying tube, okay? When food carrying tube is removed, food cannot be transported, all right? So a few weeks later, Peter observed that fruit A grew bigger than fruit B. Explain. Okay, now before I get to the explanation, take note of some things. The word bigger is a comparative. You are looking at 2 fruits. You're comparing 2 fruits. So in your answer, make sure you have your comparatives in it. Okay, next thing I need you to take note of is your evidence and concept as per the explained questions that we've been doing so far. So evidence here would be the number of leaves, okay? If you go back to the diagram, at the cut H, these are leaves at the bottom, these are leaves at the top. So very clearly, above part H, there are many, many more leaves, okay? If there are more leaves, more food can be made and more food can be transported to wherever they need to be, okay? So I need to compare the number of leaves. My concept here would be relating it to the amount of food made, right? Like I was saying just now, more leaves, more food, okay? This will result in the fruits becoming bigger. So what happens here is there are more leaves above part H. These leaves can make food or make more food. This extra food can be transported to fruit A and be stored there. Okay, therefore it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. All right. Now in part D, if the animals had chewed off the outer ring at part G, would the plant be able to survive? After a few weeks, explain why. Okay, Going back to the diagram, part G is here. You realize that part G is below all the leaves. And then under part G, you have roots, okay? So we need to go back to our evidence and concept again. Our evidence is that there are no leaves below part G. No leaves below G. Then our concept is roots are living things. Roots are part of the living things. They need food too, okay? So our concept here would be no food for roots. Now, when the roots doesn't receive food, what's going to happen to it after a while? It's going to die, okay? When the roots die, the plant will not be able to get water and mineral salts because the roots are not doing its job, okay? So will the plant be able to survive after a few weeks? No, it will not, okay? Food made by the leaves cannot be transported to the roots. The roots die because it will not be able to absorb water and minerals for the plant. And then therefore, the plant will die. Okay, can you see we're telling the story in a manner? Okay. Moving on to the third part of the question. Over here, fruit A was cut as shown in the diagram. You've got the seeds inside the fruits, okay? You're asked to circle the correct answer in the statement. Now, one thing you need to recall, or students tend to get confused with, is what does the ovary form? What do the ovules form? Okay. And I ask my students to remember and recall by looking at the alphabets used to spell the words. So ovary has a letter R inside. Fruit has a letter R inside. So the ovary eventually gives you the fruit. On the other hand, ovules form the seeds. How do I remember that? Ovules has letter E in it. Seeds has letter E in it. Okay. So hopefully this will help you to not get mixed up which part forms the fruit and which part forms the seeds, okay? And because fruit A has more than one seed, as you can see in the diagram, fruit A was formed from a flower with many, many ovules, okay? Question 33, this is your circulatory system question. The graph shows the changes in heart rate as patient goes for a run. You can see the heart rate increasing after 10 minutes, going up, going up, going up. It stays constant, it drops, and then it remains constant again, all right? In this question, before I get to the question, you should be able to identify when does exercise start. So exercise starts at this point because the heart rate starts increasing there, okay? So it goes all the way up. She could be doing a slower jog at first and then a faster run. At some point, when we exercise, our heart rate would reach a maximum rate. We cannot keep going up and going up and going up, okay? So the next thing we need to identify is the minute the heart rate drops. The minute the heart rate drops shows the point where exercise stops. Okay, this is one thing you need to be very clear. And it will continue to drop until it returns to our normal resting heart rate, all right? There could be questions where you're asked to draw the, complete the graph of the heart rate, okay? In that case, please remember, do not draw the graph all the way down to 0, okay? Our heart rate doesn't go to 0 when we are at rest, okay? So let's get to the question. Her heart rate increased when she started running. Again, we come to an explain question. So for this explain question, we are comparing two activities, running versus no running. And then you explain with your evidence and your concept, okay? So because we are comparing two different activities, we are going to be using comparatives here. Running is a more vigorous activity compared to when you're not running, okay? Now, what is our evidence here? That running is vigorous. Now, take note that your evidence it's not for you to plant into your answer straight away. You still need to add in a little bit more fine details. Example, the word more, okay? Because you're comparing two different activities. Next one, your concept would be something that I'm sure you have come across very typically about heart pumping faster. Pumps blood faster. Okay, so let me just shift this up so that you can see that, all right? So coming to our answer, okay, running is a more vigorous activity. What happens to the heart rate? Our heart rate increase to pump blood faster to all parts of the body, okay? To all parts of the body. And then this is to transport more digested food and oxygen so that more energy can be released. So a few things to take note of here. You pump blood faster. You do not pump more blood, okay? But what you do get more of in your body is that more things are transported. So examples of more substances that are transported would be digested food and oxygen, all right? And to finish off the story, we also put in the phrase, more energy is released. So it's not just energy is released. Even when you're doing nothing, like you're sitting down here, energy is released at that time. But because when you're running, you need more energy, your body will release more energy as well through all these processes. Okay, so make sure you are not missing any concepts here. Look at your own answer. Make sure you're also not writing wrong statements like the heart pumping more blood. Okay, that's actually a wrong concept. Okay, and moving on to B. So like I was explaining just now, the heart rate ends off here at a constant rate. We are now asking why. Okay, this is just simply because this is our resting heart rate. All right. And last but not least, during patient's run, she noticed that her breathing rate increases. We all pant when we are exercising. So what we're looking for here is two gases that are produced more when she exhales out. Okay, so carbon dioxide and water vapor are the two gases we're looking for. All right. Even between our normal inhaled breath and exhaled breath, when we're not exercising, carbon dioxide and water vapor is also increased when we exhale. All right. It's just part of the gases that are produced for our body to remove it. All right. Okay, and then 34, we have a life cycle of a mosquito here. This is something related to what you've learned in primary 4. Okay. What we want is a way that a larva is different from the pupa. So you can answer with either of this. The larva feeds, but the pupa does not. A larva moves around freely, but the pupa does not. Okay. I just want to mention that sometimes there could be other possible answers that we're not able to list, all right, in our answer key here, right? But as and when possible, we'll try to give you the different possibilities, all right? So in this case, larva feeds, pupa does not, larva moves around freely, pupa does not, okay? And we move on to an experiment. So an experiment was conducted to find out how different temperature affects the breeding of the mosquito, our aim. Our change variable is the different temperature. Our entry here is not very clear yet. We're just talking about breeding until I continue to read on the question. Okay, how are we going to check and measure what's the breeding of, how much has a mosquito bred? All right, so over here, a number of mosquito eggs that hatched in a day out of 20 was recorded. So you have 20 eggs. You're going to count the number that has hatched. Okay, and you can see in the first, second, third experiment, we have 3 sets of data here. Now I'm going to highlight the data in 2 different colors. One in green. So you notice that you can see a pattern here at 18 degrees to 32 degrees. The numbers are pretty high, okay, for the number of eggs that hatch in a day. In fact, in the first experiment from 5 to 17, second experiment from 9 to 15, third experiment from 11 to 19, okay? You realize there's, in general, an increase in the number of eggs hatched in a day as the temperature increases. Now, on the other hand, our last row here shows that the numbers actually drop. It's a very drastic drop from 16 to 4, 18 to 2, 19 to 0. Okay, so what it tells you is that after a certain point, the mosquito actually doesn't hatch or breed as well anymore, right? So in B, why is this a 2-mark question? Because there's 2 parts to answer and to account for in your data. So we are going to describe the effects of temperature on the hatching of the eggs, right? We're going to look at the first set of data from 18 to 32 degrees. So as the temperature increases, number of eggs hatched in a day increases. But after that, after 32 degrees Celsius, or what we have here is at 38 degrees Celsius, the number of eggs hatched in a day decreases. Okay, so there's 2 parts to your answer here. Now, in part C, why was the experiment conducted 3 times? Now, even in school, when you do experiments, you usually do it not just once, not just twice, but 3 times, and then you calculate an average of your data. Okay, the main reason is to ensure that the results are reliable. So another way I can make use of these results here in green is to find an average of the number of eggs that's hatched over the 3 experiments. Okay, same thing for my last data here. I can add up all these three things, divide by 3 to find the average number of eggs that hatch in a day. Okay, from there, I would be able to see the same relationship as what I've described in part B2. Okay, so with that, we have finished the life science open-ended part of this question or this paper. We're going to move on to the physical science soon from question 35. All right. Okay, so let's move on to question 35. Now, Janelle has a glass container. From the diagram, you can actually see that the container is irregular shape. It's not your regular cylinder shaped container, okay? Now, she filled the container with marbles, each of 1 cm³ in volume. And she counts the number of marbles and conclude that as the volume of the container. Her teacher told her that the method was incorrect. So give a reason why. Now, if you think about it, and if I were to draw on the diagram, marbles are pretty big. Okay, what happens is that when you stack them up like that, you're not going to fit them very nicely, okay? Or you're not going to pack them very nicely. In between the marbles, there are going to be air spaces, okay, which forms part of the volume of the container. But when you are just using the marbles to represent the volume, you're missing out on this air spaces here, and you didn't count these air spaces as part of the volume. Okay, so you're not going to get the actual volume of the container. Okay, so when you explain, it's simply because marbles are solid and they have definite shape. So they're not going to change their shape to fit each other very nicely. And when you place them in a container, there'll be air spaces between the marbles. Okay, so the key concept here is that the space between the marbles not accounted for. Okay, so it's not going to be accurate, right? So if we move on, now you want to describe one way to find the volume. Instead of using solid, what can we use then? We can use water, okay? Anytime you want to find an exact measurement, you need to use some form of apparatus to measure, to make the measurement. So we need to use the correct apparatus, okay, to be accurate. So this actually relates back to experiments that you've done in matter before, okay? One way is to fill the glass container to the brim with water. Now take note, we need to see the idea of filling it to the brim, okay? Because if you fill half, that's not the full volume of the container. So that key phrase there, to the brim, is important. Next thing, you don't just fill it to the brim and then tell me, okay, that's 50 cm³. You need to use something else, like a measuring cylinder, okay? Why measuring cylinder and not beaker is because the reading or the markings on the measuring cylinder gives you a finer reading, okay? So you're able to read the volume more accurately. Now, you also need to explain that this volume that's in the measuring cylinder will then represent the volume of the glass container, okay, to draw the comparison, okay, or to draw the link, okay? So moving on, question 36. 3 containers were filled with equal amount of boiling water, again, hot water. They are made of different materials, and the temperature change is shown in the graph here. So X is this dotted line here, Y is the solid line, Z is the funny shape line, okay? What I'm going to do is I will transfer the alphabets here so that you can see it more clearly. This is Y, and this is Z, okay? So your 3 graphs, they're all losing heat at different rates. Therefore, the temperature of the water is changing at different rates. First question is asking you for a definition, what temperature is. Okay, temperature is a measurement. We measure temperature with thermometers. So in your answer, I must see the word measurement. Okay, so temperature is a measurement of hotness of in an object. Then, based on the results, take note of this. When we base anything on the results, we need to go back to the graph. Okay, allow the water to cool the fastest and explain why. So we need to also be able to link it to various concepts. Now, first of all, what evidence am I looking for? I'm looking for the temperature decrease fastest if I'm looking for the container that allows the water to cool the fastest. Okay, in other words, for my concept, anything that allows the water to cool the fastest would be the best COH. Okay, conductor of heat, best conductor of heat. So the best conductor of heat allows temperature to decrease the fastest. Based on the graph, it will be container Y. Now, to explain container Y is because the material is the best conductor of heat. The boiling water lost heat to the surroundings through the container the fastest. Okay, and hence the temperature decrease the fastest. So in this answer, you need to take note of a few things. There are three beakers here. The minute we are comparing three or more things, we need to use superlatives like best, like fastest, okay? And it has to be consistently used in the whole answer, all right? Next thing, we are looking at the container that results in the temperature decrease. So when you explain in your answer, it's not just the water losing heat to the surroundings. It is because it is from the water to the materials to the surroundings. So make sure your link of the heat loss process is clear and you stated all the things that you need to. Okay? Can? So with that, I'm going to move on to part C. This time around, we're going to change up the experiment a little bit. I am going to replace it with ice cubes. Okay? And the mass of each ice cube was recorded over time. Why is it that the mass of ice cubes are decreasing for all the graph? It's because they are melting. Okay? So when you melt, you change it to, or it turns into ice, right? So the mass decreases. Now, moving on, which one will be able to melt the fastest? It would be the best conductor of heat. Why? It's because it's able to gain heat from the surrounding the fastest. So I'm going to make a note here. For Y, it will be able to melt. It will allow the ice to melt the fastest because it's gaining heat the fastest because Y is the best conductor of heat. So in the event that you're asked to explain this, make sure you have, again, the superlatives and the correct transfer of heat from one place to another. Okay. Now, if I go back to the graph, Y is the one that melts the fastest because the temperature decreases the fastest. Z will be the direct opposite. Okay, it's the temperature is decreasing the slowest here. In other words, Z is your poorest conductor of heat. So the mass of ice cube will change the least over time. All right. Okay, then we move on to question 37. 37 is a question on materials. Mayen conducted an experiment with materials D and E as shown. The materials had the same thickness. Okay, so a mass of 50 grams was added to each material at a time. So 50, add on 50, add on 50, add on 50. Okay, and you can see the graph here, right? So state the increase in length of material D when the mass changes from 0 to 200. At 0, you have the length here. At 200, you have the length here. So make sure you read the graph properly. Here. Okay. You will have 26 cm. So you can write a note for yourself. 26 cm. You started off with 20 over here. So this will give you 6. Also remember to give your units centimeters in your final answer. Okay. Now, we're looking for the original length. Again, we can just read off the graph at the starting here. For the length of the material, it did not begin at 0. It began at 20 cm. Okay. So again, remember your units. So similar to one of the questions that we've asked just now, why do we need to start off with the same length? It is the question where you are asked to ensure that the MV is only due to the CV. Now, in this case, your MV is how much increase the length is. Your CV is the mass that you're adding on, every 50 that you're adding on. So to ensure that the increase in length of material is only due to the mass added. Okay? Okay, and then we move on to 38. Now, Mrs. Lee poured some hot tea into a cup and covered with a lid. Okay, you have water droplets here. Now, in the question, they also mentioned water droplets formed on the inner surface of the lid. Explain. So this is your P5 water cycle question. Okay, now you need to, again, go back to the evidence and the concept because this is an explain question. Evidence here would be the water vapor that forms the water droplets, okay, after certain processes happen. Are you able to identify the correct process for water droplets to form? It is condensation, okay? Right, so over here, we are going to start off from the hot tea first. It's because the water vapor from the hot tea evaporated. That's why you have water vapor in this middle part here. This water vapor touched the cooler inner surface of the lid. They will lose heat, they condense into water droplets. Okay, so this is the complete answer you should have. Make sure again you explain in a stepwise manner, okay? And use the correct state of matter. So water vapor and then water droplets. All right. Do not use the word steam here because we don't know how hot is the tea. The tea could be at 100 degrees Celsius. The tea could be at 90 degrees Celsius. So we don't know whether it's steam or not. Okay. Now, the next part of the question here, Johnny wanted to find out the rate of evaporation that's affected by the temperature at different times of the day. Let's go into our MV and CV again. So my MV, or this time around, my MV is actually at the start of the aim, which is the rate of evaporation. I'm going to measure the rate of evaporation. What is my change variable? Change variable will then be the temperature at different times of the day. Okay. He filled the containers with 500 ml of water, placed them in the field at different times of the day. He conducted each experiment for 2 hours and recorded the amount of water left in the container. Okay. So you need to be able to draw the link. Less water left means that more water evaporated, means that there was higher ROE. ROE is rate of evaporation. Okay. So from the data here, you can see that the amount of water, the least water left is from 2 to 4 p.m. And the most water left is from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. So based on the results, again, we need to go back to this results later, okay? Which time of the day had the highest temperature? It's 2 to 4 p.m. Again, I will explain here. We'll go back to our evidence, which is we need to use the evidence based on the amount of water left. Our concept is rate of evaporation. Okay, the factors that affect rate of evaporation. Okay, I'm going to write it in short form. So the amount of water left in the container was the least. The highest temperature caused the highest rate of evaporation, allowing the most water to gain heat and evaporate in the water vapor. Did you notice that there are 3 setups here? So we are using superlatives like highest, most, okay, to explain our answer. All right. Now state one other factor that affects rate of evaporation. You can either state wind, humidity, or exposed surface area. Okay, you have learned 4 different factors that affects rate of evaporation. So any one of these 3 would be the correct answer. All right, we cannot use temperature anymore because this was already the factor that we are using to conduct this experiment. Okay, 39 is an electricity question. Okay, a restaurant uses a portable food warmer to keep food hot. Warmer has 2 identical bulbs that give out heat. Okay, so I'm sure some of you have come across this before. They use light bulbs to warm up, keep the food warm, right? You're asked to complete the circuit so that the bulbs will work as described below. The bulbs are shining at their brightest, and then bulbs will only light up when switch is closed. From these 2 requirements, you should be able to tell that we are looking for a parallel circuit. Okay, not only that, the mention of the word switch here means I need to draw a switch in. Okay, so it's always good to just settle one circuit first, okay, which is 1 bulb. You need to take note for the connection of bulb. There's 1 wire to the metal tip, 1 wire to the metal casing. Okay, I'm going to start with the bulb on the right, which is to the metal casing and the battery, and then 1 from the metal casing to the other end of the battery. Okay, so this will give me 1 circuit already. Now for the next bulb, for it to be in a parallel circuit, what I will do is I will just join it here to this wire and then over here to this wire. Can you see the parallel circuit? Okay, so if you're not sure, you can trace with your pen. This will be 1 circuit, This will be the other circuit. All right. I need to remember to put in my switch. I'm going to use a different color. Okay. So the switch can be anywhere along here or along here, because in this position, the switch would be able to control both the bulbs. Okay. So I've given the breakdown of the marks in the answer key. There are 3 marks we are looking for here. Number 1 is the correct connection to the bulb. Number 2 is the correct parallel connection. Number 3 is the switch. Okay. Last one. We're down to the last question. Now, Jimmy set up the apparatus as shown. Contact point bar R, rod Y are made of iron, and bar R rotates at point A. So what you can do is to take a pencil and then draw the bar here to show that it's moving, okay, left and right, right? Now, you are asked to explain when the switch is closed, okay, the bulbs blinks on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off. So you're supposed to explain why. Now, in this question, we need to talk about the electric current flow. So we will begin with the closed switch. Start off with the closed switch situation first. Now, when you close the switch, what happens is that straight away, there is actually a closed circuit. So let me trace from here, closed switch. Okay. This is iron. It's a conductor of electricity. Goes through, bulb lights up. But what is also happening is that this rod will eventually become an electromagnet. Okay. So let me get there in a bit. Let's talk about the closed switch first. Electric current can then flow through. And then this allows the bulb to turn on. What happens in the next step is rod Y becomes an electromagnet. It's going to attract bar R towards it. Now, the minute bar R moves towards rod Y, there's an open circuit formed here. Okay, that brings us to our second part of the question. It's an open circuit. So now electricity cannot flow through. The bulb is turned off. Okay, when it's turned off, over time, what happens is that this electromagnet will lose its magnetism. It will no longer attract bar R. The bar will flip back to its original position, going back to the original circuit. Okay, so for this question, you need to explain the 2 scenarios. Number 1 is when it's still a closed circuit. Number 2, when it's an open circuit, to score you the 2 points. Okay. Last but not least, state the effect of the bulb if the contact point was replaced with a plastic piece. So the contact point is here. The contact point was made of iron. Now you're going to replace it with plastic. So you should know that plastic insulator. Okay, so your evidence here. Plastic is insulator. Your concept would be electricity cannot flow through. Cannot flow through. Okay, I'll bring this down so that you can see better. Right. So state the effect first. The bulb will not light up. Okay. Next one. Go on to explain with the evidence, because you know that plastic is an electrical insulator. So therefore, the concept with the insulator is that electric current cannot flow through. All right. Okay, so with that, it brings us to the end of the paper. I know it's a very, very long video, so I hope you just focus on the parts that you need help with, and then fast forward to that point that you need. I hope this paper has also been useful for you as a revision before your P5 SA2 paper. All right. Thank you very much for joining us. Bye-bye.